in the death of an unarmed black man.
George Floyd!
It has been incredibly difficult to prosecute a police officer successfully.
I'm here because I'm sick and tired of seeing black men and women be killed and nothing be done about it.
We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
Jonathan Farrell was unarmed when he died, just a month shy of his 25th birthday.
Now that officer, Randall Carrick, is charged with voluntary manslaughter.
A mistrial was declared in the case of a white police officer who shot and killed an unarmed black man. There were protests outside the court after the mistrial was announced Friday.
Shoot! Young and black!
Don't shoot!
Unarmed!
Don't shoot!
Unarmed!
Don't shoot!
Death of Eric Garner
Of a heart attack on Thursday, the father of 6 can be heard on the tape saying repeatedly,
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
There needs to be prosecution. That's what this is all about.
Many people simply cannot understand why the grand jury did not indict when they could actually see video of what went down between that New York police officer and Eric Garner.
Michael Brown, an unarmed 18-year-old, was shot and killed during a struggle with a Ferguson police officer.
Officer Darren Wilson will not be indicted.
It's the feeling among many of these people that black lives don't matter. Not one reason did this grand jury find to indict him.
I ask a question.
Yes.
How can we be promised that this injustice will happen again to another black kid?
In another state tomorrow.
How can we assure our kids that they're safe out on the street with your officers?
That's my
That's
question.
what I want to know. I have a black child.
Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke shot and killed 17-year-old Laquan McDonald.
For the first time in 35 years, a Chicago police officer is charged with first-degree murder.
That officer found guilty of second-degree murder. Very unusual, very important one.
It just goes to show you how serious that I am about my life and all these other lives that are out here that are scared of the police.
An officer shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice on Sunday.
Tamir Rice was playing with a pellet gun when officers arrived, and one of them opened fire within 2 seconds.
Grand jury decided not to indict the 2 officers who shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice.
Cleveland's prosecutor calls it a tragedy, but not a crime.
Doesn't even warrant a trial. That, in my mind, is unacceptable.
Think of the death of Freddie Gray.
All lives matter, but you got to think about who dying out here.
prosecutors in Baltimore dropped all remaining charges against 3 police officers in the Freddie Gray case.
Samuel DuBose was shot in the head Sunday after being pulled over for a missing license plate.
Officer Raymond Tensing has now been charged with murder and voluntary manslaughter.
The only reason why Tensing is being charged is because there was a body cam. Yes.
Now those charges have been dismissed.
Black Lives Matter!
We will never get a conviction in this case.
In the death of Alton Sterling,
African-American man killed by police in Louisiana.
The Louisiana Department of Justice cannot proceed with a prosecution.
All we want is the same justice that they put against us whenever we go through certain trials and tribulations.
Philando Castile, a supervisor at a school cafeteria where kids loved him.
Police officer Geronimo Yanez shot Castile to death while he was in the car with his girlfriend and her 4-year-old daughter.
Jurors found Yanez was reasonable in his decision to shoot and kill Philando Castile during a traffic stop last July.
Under the circumstances, just because he was a police officer, that makes it okay.
I think the past 2 shootings with Alton and Philando have really sparked something.
There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
Former fans burning his number 7 jersey.
I hope you get cut.
40-year-old Terrence Crutcher was killed on Friday when local officers responded to a call of a stalled vehicle in the middle of the road.
12 jurors found TPD officer Betty Shelby not guilty of manslaughter in the shooting of Terrence Crutcher.
The facts were there. All the elements of manslaughter was there.
The death of 22-year-old Stephon Clark sparked nationwide protests.
Clark was hit 20 times. He was in his grandparents' backyard at the time.
This is what we have to do to not only this young man, but those who are going to come behind him.
Police officers will not face charges saying they did not break any laws when they shot Stephon Clark in his grandparents' backyard.
And the same cop who killed him is back on the streets patrolling other communities, running through other people's backyards. I'm uneasy with that.
Anger overnight over the shooting death of 26-year-old Botham Jean in his own apartment.
Former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger is waking up this morning behind bars. She was found guilty yesterday of murdering her neighbor in his own home.
Tatiana is her name, and everyone is seeing that name on social media. There she is.
She was up playing video games with her nephew when she was shot and killed by former Fort Worth police officer Aaron Dean.
The Fort Worth police officer who shot at Tatiana Jefferson in her own home has been formally charged with murder.
Breonna Taylor.
A woman was shot and killed in her apartment.
George Floyd died in police custody after an officer pressed his knee into Floyd's neck.
Said, "I can't breathe," eerily similar to what we heard in 2014 with Eric Garner.
Black Lives Matter.
I filed an amended complaint that charges former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin with murder in the second degree.
George Floyd, whose killing by U.S. police triggered anti-racism protests right around the
Weeks
world.
of global protests and international support
And impact around the world.
Protesters marched once again in cities worldwide demanding police departments change their tactics.
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
Okay. So, as stated, this webinar will be a little bit difficult for some, but it is necessary in the times that we live in. This podcast or this webinar, excuse me, is for the safety of our young people. We really want them to make sure that our young people, as well as our adults, our supporters, our families, our friends, to be able to make it back home safely. And so this is not necessarily about legal rights. It's about how to make it back home. Some of the content that you'll hear and watch may be difficult, but it is necessary. So, as always, these webinars are held every third Tuesday of each month from 5:30 to 6:30, unless otherwise stated. We may be partnering with Georgia Rise to host some of these, and so dates may change for the next two months. But other than that, they're held at the same time, same place. If you have any questions or any suggestions for webinar topics, do not hesitate to send them. We're always looking for different topics, different things that you want to know, you as young people in care, as well as the adult supporters who are helping young people transition from care. So don't hesitate to put your comments and suggestions in the box as you fill out the registration. I read those and I take them into accountability. Jamaica, she's unable to be with us right now, but note that she's still working on making sure that young people have jobs. So working with our MAC employment and training program. So please be on the lookout for that stuff. I am your regular host, Anthony Stover. These are some of the things about me. I'm also one of the founding members of our group called Georgia EmpowerMEnt. I spent a little bit over 12 years in Georgia's foster care system. As always, if you have any questions about that, do not hesitate to ask. Certificates will be received by Friday morning, meaning that you receive a follow-up email, and it will have a link in there, and all you have to do is fill it out, and it'll send you a certificate. If you have more than one person looking at this webinar, please make sure that each person fill out the certificate, or fill out the link that is sent to you. Our guest for today. So, Randee, can you introduce yourself? Let everybody know who you are. Why they should put a little bit of respect on your name.
These are some surprise questions I was completely unprepared for. So my name is Randee Waldman. That's the easy part. I am the director of the Barton Juvenile Defender Clinic at Emory Law School. I've been here for 15 years. I am a born and bred New Yorker. Go Mets. I live, breathe, die, orange and blue for the Mets. My favorite movie of all time. There are many. I'm gonna go for the cop out because it's baseball season and go with A League of Their Own.
Not a bad choice.
A fine movie. If we want to go political, The American President is also a fine movie.
I don't know that one.
Come with some others along the way. Wow, my phone could hold one app. I don't even know that I can answer that. I'm not actually. I mean, so right now the app that gets seen I'm going to keep on the same theme, right? The app that gets used most right now is my MLB app, where I have a subscription so that I can watch Avatar Mets baseball games.
Oh,
so
really?
Baseball season, MLB TV is my one go-to app.
Okay.
I'm not actually on social media, so I don't have Facebook or Instagram apps on my phone at all right now.
Okay.
My favorite hobby, I could keep with the baseball theme and say that I'm a former college softball player, but I've given up softball and I've traded it in for tennis because apparently that's what we play in Atlanta.
Huh.
So I'm on a Alta tennis team. We have our final match of the season this Sunday.
Really?
Right now, what's that?
I learned so much about people when they answer
these questions. And I am most definitely not a chef / cook. So I love my barbecue. I do almost all of my cooking on my grill. My sort of go-to Jewish holiday cooking, the things that I know how to do, a pretty good job at potato latkes.
What's that?
Potato latkes, the food, it's like a potato pancake. It's the food of Hanukkah.
Oh, okay.
I can't say that I love to make them. I'm pretty good at making them. I don't like to cook at all. If I could hire a chef, that would be my first thing. Like people want all sorts, like I want a chef. I don't even care if they cook me like on Sundays and I get to eat the same food all week. I just want somebody to do all of my cooking for me.
I love it.
So yeah, that's what I got on my surprise pop questions.
All right, awesome. All right, so upcoming opportunities for young people. This is just a small list of them. If you want this list, I can definitely send it out. But we're going to go through all of these different things from the webinar that's happening right now to Through Our Eyes podcast. We're going to be talking with an entrepreneur who was in foster care. He went from being homeless to firing his boss. Like I think he fired his boss last year, and he's like 25, and he's running his own TV studio. Like amazing guy. So please log on tomorrow for that interview. Our EmpowerMENT Family Recipes, that's going to resume on May 5th. We already sent air fryers to young people, so they're going to be cooking cooking wings, and we're going to be interviewing an adult supporter so you can learn about more resources. And
So
we have
apparently I need to join that one.
Say what?
But apparently I need to join that session so that I can up my chef game.
No, come on, I love cooking. Our empowerment leadership retreat is happening on Saturday, May 1st, and it's going to be virtual for those of you who are interested in joining empowerment, learning more about it. But it's going to be a real training for our young people who have to present and do trainings and teach classes and things like that. So it's more for professional training. Feel free to join. And next month on May 20th, we're going to be doing an older youth pandemic webinar, and we're partnering with Foster Club to do that. And so you're going to see some of those flyers. And for those of you who are not sure, the government has issued over $400 million for states to use for young people in care as far as pandemic relief. So that's going to be a very informative resource podcast. And we're always looking for more young people within the LGBTQ community to join the task force that we're partnering with Georgia Appleseed and a few others to make sure that your rights are not being violated, as well as to make sure that we identify some laws and policies that would help you. And I said our MAC employment and training program. If you're interested in the field in IT, please make sure you sign up for this program. You're going to be getting certificates and things like that. So this flyer is on our Facebook, as well as I send it out through our newsletters. And some of you were wondering who actually won the air fryers and the blenders this round. I still have a lot more to give. Thank you, Georgia United Credit Union and Georgia Rise, but we have Matthew and Roger. They won the air fryer. Michael won the blender, and then another young person, because of her amazing leadership skill, we gave her an air fryer. So we're gonna be making some wings and cooking and doing some great things. And this is what I was telling you about. So James Hill, amazing guy. Like he's younger than me, but I still look up to him. Like amazing guy. And this is our leadership retreat. So Amerigroup is hosting a yoga and meditation session on April 29th. So feel free to sign up for that. They're partnering with the Ryan Cameron Foundation. They're going to be also letting you know about different resources as well. And make sure that you sign up for Gear Up services. Like we're gonna have them on again next month. Looking to do another thing. But if you remember last month, we had them on and they came on to talk about different options for school, like how to pick the right school for you. So. And this is what happened last month. We had our poetry slam, which was so fun. It was so much fun. And as I said, Gear Up, KSU came on to talk about the right college for you. How do you pick the right college? Because not every college is meant for everybody. People learn that $20,000 in, so learn it before you start paying money for school. I think it's about time for me to do another active shooter webinar, what to do in the event of. As with this webinar that we're doing tonight, active shooter is one of those things that it's best to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So be on the lookout for that as I schedule that again. And we're making sure we're in COVID season, so wash your hands. Wear your mask, and it's your medical coverage as well. We're gonna have America come back on again to talk more about how your Medicaid coverage is covered when you turn 18. So as we begin, like I said, this is gonna be a very sensitive topic, but it's much needed. And if you have families and friends that want to watch, please don't hesitate to send them the links to our I'm gonna post it on our YouTube. It's gonna be streaming. It's streaming right now on our Facebook. So if you see me turning and looking, it's because I'm looking at chats on our Facebook and other areas.
When someone accuses a police officer of misconduct, it's often a he said, she said situation. But video is completely changing that. Ever since a bystander recorded Rodney King being beaten by Los Angeles police in 1991, the power has been in the hands of witnesses, especially now that so many people have camera phones. But it's up to chance whether a bystander captures an interaction on video or not. Most police departments now have in-vehicle dashboard cameras, but they vary in how they're used. Now, there's a rapid rise in the number of police departments who are testing body cameras, so that all interactions can be recorded, not just the ones that take place right in front of a police car. In some cases, video evidence can be the key that demonstrates that a police officer really did commit a crime.
Can I see your license, please? Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
When police officers aren't convicted or even charged after an episode of misconduct, video can show how wide the gulf is between what many people feel is acceptable and what cops are allowed to do, such as the killing of John Crawford for carrying a toy rifle in a Walmart.
Sir, what's going on?
Gunshots in the store. Which corner of the store? Police officers are here. They're on the scene.
But body cams and dash cams are also helpful to police. In fact, video evidence exonerates cops more often than it convicts them. And some cities have found that just using cameras puts everyone on their best behavior. One town in California found that use of force incidents dropped 60% after police started using body cameras. The next big question is control of video footage. When cameras get activated, how footage gets stored, and who's allowed to edit a video before it gets released. In several cases, body cameras or dash cams have malfunctioned or gone dark at critical moments, raising concerns that the footage is being manipulated. Imagine how that might have affected something like a recent New Jersey case, where the jury might have heard this.
No go for my gun! Stop! No go for my gun! Get out! Go for my gun! Get down! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Why are you trying to get my gun?
Instead of seeing this.
No go for my gun! Stop! No go for my gun! Get out! Go for my gun! Get down! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Why are you trying to get my gun? Get off my gun! You put your head behind your back, right? Let's go. Get off! I did nothing wrong. Get off! I did nothing wrong. Unlock my door. 201, we got one under. I did nothing wrong.
So, I forgot to hit record. So that's how we open this up, and I'm lucky enough to have Randee here with us today to give the training that we need. And I know we're planning on doing something once we're able to meet in person, so that we get a in-person training too. So hopefully we get that from you and your team. But right now I turn it over to you. I'm the student again today. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to put those questions in the Q&A or the chat. I'm looking at them both, so that's why I'm turning my head again. So please ask your questions.
So please, I'll reiterate where Anthony just left off, which is please ask questions. This is designed as an interactive training. This is not designed as a webinar, right? The goal of this is to get as much involvement and for me to answer the questions that you might have. And I'm going to start off, right, as is highlighted by the videos that Anthony showed you. Want to start off this training at the very beginning, and the one he just showed us right now, which is there's a difference between the rights that you have and the rights that the police will enforce and follow while you are engaged in an encounter. And so, super important takeaway from all of this is your goal is to go home. Your goal is to go home alive, and your goal is to go home uninjured. At the end of the day, if your rights are violated, that's why you have a lawyer. But it is more important to go home alive with your rights violated than it is to not go home at all while asserting your rights. So I'm going to give you an overview of your rights. I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are pretty basic. I do have a slide towards the end about protest rights and how that plays out. But the number one priority is going home alive. And so to the extent that any of your exercise of rights puts you in a dangerous situation, puts you in a situation where exercising of your rights is not safe, don't consent to things, but let things play out safely. Rule number one, show your hands, right? Keep invisible, don't run, right? There's some basic things that I can tell you your rights all day long, but your rights are irrelevant if you are not alive to exercise them. So
Yeah.
I'll say that. I want you to remember that. I will say that again at the end. I don't want you to go back and say, like, while you're in an encounter with the law enforcement, but Randee said, I was like, no, Randee said go home alive.
Yes.
And figure out the rest of this a whole lot later.
Yes.
Right. So that's my caveat. Right. Today, right, Anthony and I got on the computer and I said, I'm going to go turn my back on you for a minute because I'm going to go watch CNN for a half minute.
Yeah.
Today was, I think, a good day for us all, for our society. Hopefully it is a day that will lead to different outcomes in the future. We can hope. So that, right, there are three sort of stages of interactions that go on in the world, right? We're going to talk about initial interactions, what happens when you actually meet an officer, interactions at the station house, police station, interactions at the courthouse, and then possibly some issues of, time permitting, who's charged as a juvenile, who's charged as an adult, some of those distinctions and courtroom stuff, some protest rights, and some takeaways.
I never would have thought about those three stages back on I know the initial interaction, that's the one that we mainly think of. But the interaction at the station and the interaction at the courthouse, those are two different things that it wouldn't have crossed my mind. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah, important to think about what goes on there. So your initial officer interaction, right? How do you handle the interaction, right? So again, going home alive is rule number one, which means stop, do not run. And I know you want to run, right? And I have this conversation with my clients every day. When I have conversations with them, I'm like, I might be able to beat the charge. I don't know what you're accused of. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what they're going to say you're going to do. I might be able to beat the charge. I can't beat the obstruction. When the officer tells you to stop and you run away, I can't beat the obstruction. If an officer tells you to stop, you have to stop. All right, the law, there are some caveats there where if they didn't have grounds for stopping you to begin with, but again, that's my job. Once they say, I told you to stop, and it's on the body cam that they told you to stop, and then you start running, I can't beat that charge no matter how innocent you might be of everything else. But also, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that a police officer will shoot you while you are running away, right? You are faster than them. Yes, you might get away. Every teenager I've ever talked to tells me that they can get away, except that generally when I'm talking to them, I am doing it across from them at a detention center or inside a jail, which means guess what? They didn't get away. You are not as fast as you think you are. I know when I'm in person, I see all your faces and you're shaking your heads and you're like, I'm totally faster than I think I am. You're not. I've also represented young people with dog bites because you are definitely not faster than the dog they send after you. So I've been across from young people inside detention centers, taking video, right, snapping pictures of their dog bites so that I can document it. You don't want that to happen to you. Stop, don't run, engage with the police. Remain calm, remain respectful, keep your hands up, right? You all know this. It is a true statement. Keep your hands up.
I think I had a friend that he was out jogging because he jogs every morning, and he was just jogging because he had his hood on, he had his earphones in the hand, and he saw the lights, and he just immediately stopped what he was doing and put his hands up, and the officer kept telling him to do something with his hands, and he was like, "Nope, I'll just keep my hands." He's like, "Nope." So.
It's true, and honestly, I do it right, and I have less reason to than probably most of the people behind this black screen that I can't see. But right, when a police stop me, when a police come near me, I immediately take my hands out of my pockets when I'm walking by. Right, I walk my dog with a hoodie every day, and my hands are always in my pockets because I like it that way. And the second I see a police officer, even if I'm just walking by with my dog doing nothing, my hands come out of my pocket. It is instinct. Keep your hands where you can see them. No sudden moves. Couple of pieces of information, and I will tell you straight up, there's some controversy about this. It is possible that you don't even have to give your name, date of birth, address, and parents' contact information. There are lawyers out there who will tell you you do not have to do this. I always advise people give your name, your date of birth, your address, and your parents' contact information. That is not confidential information. There's no reason why you don't have to. It is possible that you will win on a case if you refuse to cooperate. I will say don't lie, because again, I can win the underlying charge. I can't always win the false name or date of birth information. So if your two choices are lying because you think there's a warrant out for you somewhere or not answering the question, don't answer the question, right? Don't answer the question is better than lying. But for the vast majority of encounters, name, date of birth, and then they'll ask, right, how old you are. If you are under 18, they're going to ask you for a parent's information. I generally provide that information. I suggest you provide that information. I won't tell you absolutely have to. There's controversy around that. Other than that, though, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to answer any other question from an officer. What are you doing here? Why are you here? I would sometimes, I don't know how old all of you all are. For those of you who are under age 18, for those of you who are in foster care, go easy. My foster care caseworker told me I'm not allowed to answer any questions without them. Blame it on them. My mom told me never to answer questions without her. I can't. I'm sorry. I don't want to get in trouble, right? Just blame it on them. If you're old enough, if you're over 18, you can't fall back on the easy mom excuse. Just, I'm not comfortable speaking with you today, Your Honor, your officer. I'm gonna just sit here. I got nothing. I'm not gonna answer your questions. I'm not comfortable answering your questions in these circumstances. I have not done anything. I have nothing to say to you, right? Just, right, you have a right, you have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Exercise that, answer nothing.
Can you, can we ask for an attorney?
Yep. You won't get one, right? So the key about the whole you have a right to an attorney, and I'll talk about that, that's the station house portion generally, is if you are arrested, they have to tell you you have the right to an attorney. They don't have to tell it to you until you're actually under arrest. But you're entitled to one all the time, right? So you have the right to not incriminate yourself under every circumstance in all interactions. And that includes when you are at school. Those of you still going to school, you do not have to answer your principal's questions either, or the school resource officer's questions. You have a right to not incriminate yourself. You can say, I'd like an attorney. What that does is it triggers your Fifth Amendment protections against self-incrimination, and they can't ask you any more questions. It doesn't mean you get a lawyer. It means they can't ask you questions, right? So it just stops the interrogation.
Yeah, I think I heard one of the I was reading or listening to something, and they said one of the best things you can do when being pulled over is to shut your mouth. He used more colorful language than I could use on this webinar, but it was a lawyer like, just shut your mouth, like don't talk, don't say anything outside of I want to speak to a lawyer or something like that.
And that is for sure true. And I will say that, right, the whole pulled over for a ticket thing. I have friends who are much better at getting out of pulled over for tickets than I am, because they start giving their sob stories and they get away with warnings. I just say, yes, sir, no, sir. And then I sign my form and I go on my way, and I worry about that when I get to court. Yeah, it's a strategy decision. Apparently, if you can cry real well, maybe you can get out of your ticket. I have not tried to exercise that. Because if it doesn't work, you've made an incriminating statement, right? The officer says, do you know why I pulled you over? The answer to that is always, no, sir. Do you know how fast you were going? I'm not sure, sir.
You can't say I was going to speed limit.
You can, if you think it's true. Right, I have no idea why you pulled me over. I have done nothing wrong, right? You can go there. I just take my ticket and go. Which, right, again, hands on wheel. As they blew at you, I always pull my license out before they get to me, so they can find it, so you don't have to reach into anything, find anything, go anywhere. But again, if you're pulled over, if you have a license, if you haven't done it, your hands are in your back, they ask for it, you say, officer, I'm reaching into my pocket now to get my license. Or I'm reaching into the glove box now to get my license, right? You tell them what you're doing, you say it out loud, you ask them if it's okay as you're going through that process.
So I have a question about that, because given there are a few instances, and I actually seen one, it was like a month ago where the officer told him to grab something, and then he immediately say gun to all these other officers, and dude was like, nope, I'm keeping my hands right here. So is it okay like to be like, no, I'm not reaching for anything? Because even the lieutenant just last week who was sprayed and stuff like that, he was like, I don't feel comfortable reaching for anything or whatever, and he got messed up. But the other guy that I was watching, he was a younger black dude, and it looked like the officer had murder on his mind, because he said, as soon as he said, can you reach in there and get something, as soon as he said that, and the guy started to move, he was like, gun, and then the other guy, I think it was Philando Castile, who was pulled over like 60 sometimes or whatever, and he reached for something and they shot him up with his daughter and fiance in the car or whatever. Sure. So is it okay not to reach?
My suggestion, that's where I started with, right? Grab your license before the police get to your car, right? You're blue lighted, right? You have that minute before they actually get out and walk to the front. If you don't have time to do that, it is equally as acceptable, if you're okay doing it, saying, I don't feel comfortable for reaching for anything, you're welcome to grab it from me. It's in my back pocket, it's in my glove box, you can get it yourself. You can totally do that. And just, right, I'm not comfortable reaching for anything, feel free to get another officer, let them pull, you can take whatever you want off me. Now again, be careful, right? Well, I don't know what's in your pocket, but don't keep anything in. If your pockets are clear, you can totally have that conversation.
Yeah.
personal belongings, right? This is where we go next with it, which is, right, if your pockets are clear and you're totally comfortable with the police officers grabbing the wallet for you, go for it. But otherwise, police officers generally will come up to you and demand your stuff and start searching you, right? Sometimes they'll say, is it okay if I search you? If they ask you the question that says, is it okay if I search you? The answer is always no. No, it is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have reason to search you in order for it to be legal. One reason is consent, right? I asked if it was okay if I searched them and they said yes. Reason two, right? There's depending upon, right, why they've pulled you over, why they've stopped you, why they've, grabbed you in a parking lot, whatever it is, they might have the right to search you, but they might not. They always do if you say yes. If you say yes, it's all, and who knows what's in your bag, right? You might have a leftover blunt, you might have a pocket knife, you might have something you shouldn't have in there. I wouldn't consent to them searching my bag, and I'm pretty sure there's nothing bad in there. I think. I do not consent, but they're like, I don't need your consent. I'm going to search your bag. You're like, I don't consent, but if you insist, and then you give it to them, right? I don't consent, but if you're going to search me, go ahead. But just know I don't consent. And that, right, again, for the vast majority in the Atlanta area, and I'm not sure where y'all are focused, but most of Georgia and certainly the Atlanta metro, everything's on body cam these days, right? So that goes back to the last video. Everything's really on body cam these days. And so you can see those moments of, right, when I sit across from clients and they say, I totally said no to the consent question, and then I see the body cam and it's like, you totally actually opened your door and said, come on in. Like you consented to it all. Right, same thing for your house, right? So consent, they need consent to search your body, to search your person, to search your bags, to search your house, to search your phone. Right, if they take your phone and they say, what's your password? You do not have to give them your password, ever. They can't actually force you to give a password even with a warrant. Short little tip for those of you who like to use your fingerprint instead of an actual password, they can get a warrant to get your fingerprint to open this, or facial recognition to open your device. They cannot force you to give up your actual password. I do not have my fingerprint or my face opening my phone. Again, there's nothing on there, I just don't want it. I use a password, they cannot ask for that from me.
That was a legit question I had in my mind. Can they just force my fingerprint or force my face ID?
Yeah, so only with a warrant. They need a warrant to do it, but they can get a warrant for your fingerprint and for your facial recognition, because those are not your thoughts. So the difference is, right, your bodily composition, your face, your fingerprint, your DNA, your blood. They can force all of those because they're not your thought process, so you're not incriminating yourself. Your password is your thought process, so it's a Fifth Amendment right to not have to turn over your password. That's a weird line, but our courts have drawn it. So, right, no consents to anything. Don't give them your password. Don't give them the thumbprint or the fingerprint, index fingerprint, or the face. The face, I'll just hold it up in front of you, but don't give it to them. Make them get that warrant. And house, certainly don't let them in your house without a warrant under any circumstances.
One of the things that I learned is, for those of you who have the ability, is to have a screen door or that outside door, and keep that one locked, and you can open up, and if you feel like open up the door or whatever, or you can talk to them through your Ring if you have the camera on your door.
Piece of advice number 2 or 5, wherever I'm up to, everything is being videotaped right now. the number of my clients who are caught on Ring videos these days is so high.
Mhm.
Those cameras are clear as day.
Yes, they are.
You are constantly under surveillance. This would be where we take a poll, but I'm gonna skip over those. Next question, right? The good old police standby of, right, let's just come on down to the station to talk about this further. Don't volunteer. This is all about don't volunteer things that you don't have to volunteer. Let's come on down. The question is always, am I under arrest? Am I being arrested? If the answer is yes, you go with the police officer. You let them put handcuffs on you and you go with them. If the answer is no, you are theoretically free to leave. I again ask that question, am I free to leave? They might say no, right? Because there's this really fine line between when you are detained for investigatory purposes and when you are under arrest. And so you might not be under arrest, but you're also not free to leave. It's a small sliver of cases, but I always, right, if they're trying to take you somewhere, and that somewhere can even be from across the parking lot to another spot in the parking lot, right? Am I under arrest? Make sure they tell you yes or no. Am I free to leave? Do I have to go? If the answer to all those questions is yes, don't book it. Don't run away. Go with them, but make them clarify that they are telling you whether you are arrested or not, whether you are free to leave or not, because that will have consequences for your lawyer if you get brought into custody later on. Right? If it's a bad stop, if it's a bad arrest, your case might be thrown out for a variety of reasons, right? So track those things, identify those things, don't make it easier for them as they're looking through. As I'm watching a body cam, I watch so many hours of body cam footage these days on arrests. Right, let me identify whether they have violated your rights, but don't make it easy. Can they lie to you about why you were stopped? Yes. Can they lie to you about whether you are under arrest? The answer is actually no, right? They can't lie to you about whether you are under arrest or not.
They can lie to you to make you reveal something.
Yep, they sure can. I got a whole slide on lying.
Okay.
Usually at the station, because most of the lies come at the station. Right, so you're brought down to the police station. I like to identify my 6-year-old brought into police stations because that happens. There's actually just a 6-year-old in North Carolina that made the news. The 6-year-old was charged with the destruction of real property outside the school bus stop. What do you think he did?
He threw a rock?
He didn't. He did something even more innocuous than that. Destruction of real property for picking a daisy from the front lawn of the yard by the bus stop.
No way.
Seriously, 6 years old, first grader, North Carolina, a couple of weeks ago.
One may think that common sense would kick in for an officer, that a daisy, like really?
Picked a flower, indeed. It's crazy. So, right, stuff happens. People get arrested for
No way.
some crazy things. So your Miranda rights, I hope you've all heard of these. I hope you've heard them on TV. I hope you've heard them on whatever streaming shows you've watched. They are, and they will be read to you verbatim. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Right? The key to these Miranda rights right now is A, you have been arrested. That's the magic moment. You have been arrested. The police, let me tell you quickly, do not have to read these rights to you every time they arrest you. They only have to read these rights if they plan on interrogating you, which means if they plan on asking you questions. So the number of times I show up and I talk to a young person and they say, they didn't read me my rights. I said, did you say anything? They're like, no, but they didn't read me my rights. They only read you rights if they're interrogating you. So if they just pick you up, put handcuffs on you and bring you straight to the detention center or the jail, that's not a violation of anything. If they want to ask you what happened, if they want to get a statement from you, they must read you these rights. When they read you these rights, they will ask you 2 questions afterwards, right? Do you understand your rights? I always hope for my folks to say no, because then you just start trying to get police officers to explain those rights to you. And you're like, oh, I still don't understand. Just keep saying I don't understand. That'll be fun, right? If you want to mess with them, just say I don't understand a whole bunch of times. If you don't want to mess with them, the next question is, do you want to talk to me? The answer to that one is always no. 90% of people, it's about 80% of people overall, 90% of kids under 18 say just talk. They confess within 10 minutes. They tell them everything. The whole, I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you what happened. I want to get you my side out before, none of it helps. The number of people who talk themselves out of charges during the interrogation stage is minuscule. The number of people who get themselves convicted during interrogation stage is the vast majority, because it is a whole lot easier to convict you at trial if you have told the police you did it than if they are forced to prove it. Make them prove it. There are 2 outcomes that happen down at the police station. Outcome number 1, they have enough to arrest you and they're just looking for you to confirm it. Outcome number 2, they don't have it and you give it to them. If they don't have it, make them get it, right? If you do not confess, you might be going home. I represented a young person. There were 3 people involved in the crime. There was a shooter, there was a backseat passenger, and there was a front seat passenger. The shooter confessed, the backseat passenger confessed. The front seat passenger was the actual gun owner, got charged with possession of a weapon only and did not confess and did not pick up the murder charge that the front passenger and the back passenger picked up, solely because he did not confess. They had nothing. Don't give it to them.
So what?
Key.
Yeah. So what they show you on television is that if you confess, we'll go ahead and make this deal right now. That's not a legit thing. Like if you give us what we want, we'll make this deal. That's not real.
I have never seen anyone talk themselves out of getting charged. If they say, if you confess now, you'll just go home, make them write that. For real, because they are not allowed to promise you something, right? So again, that's where your lawyer comes in, which is there a way for me to get that statement thrown out? There's a way for me to get that statement thrown out if they've made a promise to you, right? If they've made a promise of leniency. If they say, if you confess, I will not charge you. If you confess, you will go home. If you confess, these good things will happen. But it has to be an explicit promise. It can't be, if you confess, I'll talk to the DA for you. If you confess, I'll put in a good word. That is not an explicit promise. That will not help you. That will not get you anywhere.
We have a question.
Better to just say no.
Yeah, we have a question. It says, can interrogators lie to you?
Sure can. Question number 4 right there. Can the police lie to you at the police station? Police can lie to people of any age is the right answer. They can lie to you about every single thing. They can show up at the police station and they can say, I have your DNA evidence. They can say, I have 6 eyewitnesses. They can say, right, you left your fingerprints at the scene and we've already checked them and you're it, right? They can say whatever they want. All good. None of that will make their statement be inadmissible.
We have a follow-up, a clarification. Alex says you were just saying that they can promise you stuff and that you need them to write it down.
Or if it's recorded, right? If it's already being recorded and if your interrogation is being recorded, that'll come in, right? So, but make sure that promise is, like I said, it has to be a legit promise. If you confess now and tell me who did it with you, you will not be charged. Absent a promise that is that explicit, do not do it. And it is very unlikely you will get a promise that is that explicit. But if it is just a vague, right, it will be better for you if you confess, I promise you it will not be better for you if you confess. Right. So the only time that I would say you have something legit is if they say, if you confess, you will not be charged. In all other circumstances, ask for a lawyer. Do not write a statement. Do not think you are smarter than the police. Do not think you are actually writing something that helps you. Because even if you don't confess to actually committing the crime that they have you on, if you confess and say, I was there, but, or you say, I wasn't there, I was here, and then they try and check your alibi and you weren't there. Even if you didn't do the crime, they caught you in a lie, which makes it seem like you did the crime. It is virtually impossible for you to talk your way out of being arrested. They either have the evidence or they don't. So I see the follow-up question, which is, how do you know it's legit if they can lie though? Right, that's where the lawyers come in. If they legitimately write down, so they can lie about the evidence they have against you. But if they make you a promise, it is no longer what's called a voluntary statement for you, right? Because your statement must be made, and it is both as a constitutional matter and in a Georgia statute, free of fear of coercion, right? So it can't be coerced, but also free of hope of benefit. And so if an officer actually says the words to you, if you tell me what happened, I will not charge you. Even if they charge you, they will actually have the right to write that, your lawyer will be able to get that statement thrown out. That's still not as good as if you were never making the statement to begin with, because they can use it for certain circumstances. They can use it to impeach you, and the court might have already seen it, and the prosecutor has already seen it, so they're going to look at you differently and they're going to think about it differently. My advice, I will, right, any person I've ever had who's called me in the middle of the night, the answer is I will answer no questions. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how rich you are. I will answer no questions. I do not wish to speak to you at this time. Can police handcuff you without arresting you? The answer is yes. We have some extraordinarily confusing case law in the state of Georgia describing when they have crossed the line from an investigatory stop into a police arrest. And the words of, and really we've eviscerated the Fourth Amendment, but the general thought process from the courts as they come down with these decisions, to the extent that I think they have a thought process, is that they can detain you as part of an investigatory stop for as long as is necessary for safety and to complete the investigation. So how long that is anybody's guess. These cases are almost all decided in the context of traffic stops, where they will take you out of the car, they will handcuff you, the police will, the courts will say totally wasn't under arrest, was just there while they searched the car, while they did whatever they were doing, while they got the drug dogs, whatever it was. And so as long as it wasn't a prolonged prolonging it unnecessarily for the purpose of the stop, right, beyond the purpose of the stop, it is not an arrest. I did have one that I lost at the Court of Appeals where my client was not actually handcuffed, but was walked from one side of the apartment complex to another with his hands like this and an officer on his elbow. And that was held not to be an arrest as well. Although I still don't know how I lost that case. But the Fourth Amendment is not real. The custody analysis is pretty weak. And so, again, cooperate, don't consent, ask if you're under arrest, make the police officers tell you, yes, you're under arrest, because that will help you along the way as things go on.
Yeah, I think I had a friend. We was actually on a Zoom call because we was talking about a podcast, and he didn't have his phone, like he has phone mounted or whatever, so he was just there as a voice, and he got pulled over, and he said like, no, I don't consent to search or whatever, and then they got quote unquote dogs, and apparently apparently the dogs reacted, and so they made him get out of the car, and they handcuffed them and put them in the cruiser, and then they came back to search the car all while the Zoom was still going or whatever. And it's like, isn't this some BS or whatever, like but we recorded it, so hopefully told them like, if you need the evidence, we got it for you.
Well, and hopefully they didn't find anything.
No, they did.
The police dogs are the amount of times they hit where there is no where it's a false positive is pretty high. There's been some work around police dogs and what they react to and what they respond to. A lot of times they're responding to an officer's tone of voice rather than the actual hit on a car. There's an astounding number of false positives from police dog hits.
Wow.
So our takeaways from all of this, and I think we ended 6:30, so I'll go takeaways. Stop, don't run, name, birth date, address, parent contact, right? Don't argue or talk about the incident. Stay calm and respectful. Don't give permission to do any of these things. Search, right? Search your house, search your bag. Ask if you're under arrest, if you're free to leave. Don't answer questions without a lawyer. Tell the police, I'm not answering questions without a lawyer. I'm going to skip all of this stuff. Let me go.
If you need to, go ahead and keep going, because this is really important. So don't skip over anything that's really important. For those who have to leave, they can leave. But I still want this information on our site so people can say that they haven't heard this.
Well, so that was pretty much the right section. So I'm going to jump to protest rights. The other stuff is when can you get arrested, like jurisdiction, juvenile court, adult court, how those boundaries work. Let me talk briefly about protest rights, because I think that's particularly relevant today. And then I'm going to make one final caveat takeaway that is not on these slides that were created by my students around social media and what you're doing. So protest rights, the First Amendment of the Constitution protects your rights to free speech and to protest. Where can you protest and under what circumstances? The strongest rights you have are going to be in traditional public forums, sidewalks, parks, streets, right? Places that are open and available to the public are the strongest protest rights you have. Other public property, government buildings, if you're in government buildings, be careful, don't block public entrances. If you're on right? Park sidewalks, park streets, be careful about blocking the flow of traffic, because that's where people start getting into trouble, particularly if there are no permits. It's weak on private property, right? If you are on somebody's private property, property owners can tell you to get off their property and you have no free speech rights there, because that is not the government, that is the private owner. Dispersal orders, this is where the trouble really starts. When the police issue a dispersal order, everyone must leave. Right, so you've all seen it back in the heyday this summer when the protests were happening daily, when they set curfews, when they set dispersal orders, and they tell you it is now time to go home, right? Everything is calm, everything is going along smoothly, and then that dispersal order happens and people don't leave. They have to announce it. They have to announce it loudly enough for everyone to hear. They have to provide exit routes. They have to tell you where to go. But if you stay beyond the dispersal order, you are subject to arrest. And that's where many of the arrests came out this summer downtown in Atlanta, where there were curfew violations because they instituted the emergency curfews, and there were dispersal orders that people did not abide by. I'll make a final keynote, I'll put the presentation down, which is about social media. For the love of God, stop posting pictures of yourself on social media with guns and drugs in them.
Yes.
Seriously, social media is the downfall. So first of all, don't post the social media picture of yourself committing your crime. Because guess what? Everybody knows where your social media profile is, and that is the first place that people are looking these days. Prosecutors are looking, the police officer are looking, the people who don't like you are looking and sharing. It is out there. Don't post a picture of you committing a crime. If you've stolen a car, don't post a picture of yourself standing in front of the stolen car. These are all real things. Don't threaten people over text message. Don't threaten people over Snapchat, right? All of these things are safe for posterity and are used against you. And then seriously, the guns and the drugs and the money in the money shot of you on social media. And I've asked client after client about why they think it's cool to post all of these things on social media. And apparently the answer to that is because it gets mad likes. The likes are not worth your liberty and your freedom. Do not post a picture of you with the gun that was used in the armed robbery.
Right.
Do not post pictures of yourself in front of guns and drugs. It is not worth it. So that's my prepared stuff. Happy to take as many questions as you all have. I don't know if there's anything coming in on Facebook Live.
No questions, just lurkers, which is fine. But I don't know, like that yeah. I'm big on our advocates, especially our advocates that do a lot of presentations. Like I say, I will look at your social media. Like don't be stupid, because it's a shame how many people get fired or get kicked out of school because of social media. And I was like, this is not gonna happen for you up under my watch. So yeah.
I don't even have a social media profile, so I can't even look at your social media page. But right, Instagram pages, right? The number of Instagram pages right now that are covered in guns are crazy. And I get it. You're using a fake one. You're using a Finsta. You're using a T page. You're using any of these things that I don't have, but I've had to learn about. Guess what? We find those too. Everybody knows them. Everybody knows where they are. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows how to access them.
Awesome. Well, hold on, let's see.
So I've just posted our brochure, which is not this presentation, into the chat. You're welcome to it.
Yeah, I was looking at somebody's making a thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, I really want more people to start tuning into these, because I try to make sure that the presentations that are presented are like real life for people. Like I I personally don't like fluff. So I like to make sure that the stuff that is presented is stuff that you actually need. So yeah, this is really great information. Randee, thank you so much for this. I don't know, like I can't wait till we're able to do the in-person stuff, because I really would like to see the full training that you say your students do. So once we're able to be able to be together physically, or if you have a virtual portion of that, I really want that, because I know one of the things that we're planning on doing is doing like a quarterly training for young people who are thinking about signing themselves out of care, and I want this to be part of that training. So I again, thank you for this knowledge, for this content. For those of you who are joining late, it'll be up on Facebook, as well as I will post it on our YouTube page, and all of those links are behind me, actually. Yeah. As well as you'll receive them in probably by the morning, before Friday. So you'll receive them in the follow-up email that you'll get. But again, Randee, thank you. We really appreciate you.
Great, thank you all. Have a good
All right.
night.
Well, everybody have a great night.